Hey everybody, welcome to the Master Wing channel where we are all about the game of Wingspan. Today we are uploading a video geared towards newer players. If you are just learning how to play and you're not 100% sure on the rules, or if you know all the rules and you just want to understand basic strategy and want to improve your game, this is going to be the video for you. These how-to or instructional videos will be in a series playlist entitled Wingspan Workshop. And I think this playlist is long overdue because I have a lot of uploads of just gameplay, but I wanted a place where newcomers or rookies could go just to understand more of the rules and, again, basic strategy. So here we are. We're going to go over card selection. What should you keep in your starting hand? Bonus cards, food, etc. Because it can be a little overwhelming if you're just opening the box. We're going to use the Monster Couch app. We're going to play a 5-player game, and we're going to choose 5 different random hands. I haven't seen these ahead of time, so we're going to try to make these 30-second to 5-minute decisions and just talk out what we think we should keep. There is no technical right or wrong answer, okay? So don't stress out about getting a perfect starting hand because it rarely ever happens. We want to look at the good, the bad, and the ugly, and hopefully by the end of this video you'll have a better understanding of what to keep. Alright, so this is player 1's starting hand, and before we talk basic strategy, I just want to go over the rules really quick just so everyone understands what we need to do before we proceed in our game of Wingspan. You can keep 0 cards or you could keep all 5. The issue that you need to keep in mind is that the amount of cards that you keep and the amount of food you keep need to equal 5. Okay, so if I keep 3 cards, those 3 cards, I can only take 2 food. If I only keep 1 card, I keep 4 food, right? Etc., etc. Technically, you could keep all 5 birds if you wanted to. And you can see in this Monster Couch app, it's not going to let me proceed with the game because I couldn't keep that much food. Sometimes, once in a blue moon, you can keep all 5 cards, but I wouldn't recommend it for new players. That could sometimes slow up your game instead of speed it up. Conversely, you could choose to keep all 5 food types and not keep any of your birds. Sometimes you're just dealt with a bad hand, and these are things that we want to touch on. Probably in these 5 players, you're going to encounter some less than perfect hands being dealt. So I think this will be a good experience just to go over this, and I just wanted to make sure we knew the rules. It's also important to note that you cannot keep 2 of the same food resource. So for instance, if I wanted to play this brown pelican and maybe this black-billed magpie, I could keep a fish and I could keep a worm, but I couldn't double up on fish. All right, I could keep a rat, and this black-billed magpie has the wild food symbol, so I could play that one straight away. But the brown pelican, I would need to look at the bird feeder and try to gain another fish. And you can see the bird feeder here doesn't have another fish. So that's an important rule to keep up with. Also, you're dealt 2 bonus cards and you only get to select 1, right? So based on our experience, we're going to walk through what we think we should keep in this scenario. The good thing about player 1 is they get to go first. Going first is an advantage of Wingspan because you get first dibs at the display tray. And you can see we have the European honey buzzard with the teal power here, a spotted towhee, and Anna's hummingbird. So judging just first glance from the cards we're dealt, we're probably going to pick up one of those, and let me explain why. Firstly, we're looking for cheap, easy-to-play birds that can start this engine-building game. Wingspan is a card-based engine-building game, right? And you can see we've got birds that cost 3 food. And many of these have multiples of the same type, like the acorn woodpecker, 3 seeds. The hermit thrush, 2 berries. And, of course, the brown pelican, 2 fish, lazuli bunting. It's different food types, but it's 3 different ones. And so this is actually a pretty tough starting hand. I normally don't stick with the acorn woodpecker or hermit thrush, but you need a bird that can gain you food, and you need birds that give you card access. And you can see on these 5, you can pause the video if you want to read these brown powers, but for the sake of time, I'm not going to. But none of these birds give me extra cards. And if you don't have card access, you're basically just reliant on the cards you were dealt. And that can turn out into a frustrating game for a new player when you're trying to gain food and your whole turn is just gain 1 food. Or you're trying to draw some cards and your whole turn ends up being, I'm going to draw just 1 card. So with that in mind, we're going to try to improvise and make the best of a bad situation with this player 1. With no card access, but getting to go first, the bird in the tray that I like the best is the spotted towhee. It gains 1 seed from the supply, and a new player might look at the card and think, man, it's only 0 points. That's not really worth my time. But in my experience, being able to gain a seed is not only crucial, but you can do it while laying eggs. You can see here that it can go on the grassland. So I can score points and gain food at the same time. So that's my first pick in this list. Other players might think differently. The Anna's hummingbird is also something to consider because each player can gain a dice from the bird feeder, and you give everybody else a food, but you could put the hummingbird in the wetlands or the grassland, and again, gaining food outside of the gain food habitat, which is the forest. Okay, so going first, my experience, I'm going to consider taking the towhee my first turn of the game, and even though the towhee could give me seeds, I'm going to pass on the acorn woodpecker. For as far as bang for your buck, I'm not sure laying eggs 3 times and getting 3 seeds is worth it for the acorn woodpecker. I'm going to try to draw something from the deck instead. And then the hermit thrush is also something nice. It's a star nest, and a new player might think, man, it's 7 points. That's pretty good. But you can see it's brown power. Players with fewest forest birds gain 1 from the bird feeder. And in a 5-player game, that might not be you. You could put the hermit thrush down, and then when you activate its brown power, a player with 0 birds in the forest is going to be able to gain a food and not you. So I'm not super high on the hermit thrush either. I told you this is actually kind of a rough starting hand. So we're going to improvise and do the best we can. We're going to start off with choosing the towhee, and I like taking 1 food for the towhee. The towhee could let me play into the black-billed magpie, and the black-billed magpie is a pink power that when another player's predator succeeds, that's what that logo means, you gain 1 food from the bird feeder. And it's between turns. And in a 5-player game, the odds of somebody having a predator and potentially a predator succeeding is pretty high compared to a 1 versus 1 game. So since the towhee could give me seeds and I could play the magpie relatively inexpensive, I'm going to go with the magpie. And then also I talked about card access. I don't have any cards that can help me draw, but I do have a wetland bird, and we're going to look at the game board here in a second or in the next video, and you're going to see that some bird in the wetlands is usually better than 0 birds in the wetlands. So we're going to go for this brown pelican. The bad part about the brown pelican is there's no fish in the bird feeder, so I couldn't start off with a fish, grab a fish, and then play brown pelican. We're going to rely on this towhee, potentially this magpie, and also if another player grabs Anna's hummingbird, we may be able to get the brown pelican down. So we talked about starting hand. This is the good, the bad, the ugly, and this leans towards the ugly. We're going to hope this towhee comes through, and that's going to be our starting hand. I think I'll keep 1. We'll go with a berry here, just because I know towhee's going to give me seeds. All right. And let's look at our bonus cards. Of course, you can flip in between your bird cards in your hand and the bonus cards, and oftentimes my bonus cards will help me dictate what cards to keep. So passerine specialist, birds with wingspans 30 centimeters or less, and visionary leader, birds in your hand at the end of the game. So visionary leader relies on you to have remaining cards at the end of your game. And unfortunately, guys, this is the base game and the European expansion on this app. Drawing cards is not usually the highest point scoring turn towards the end of the game. So Visionary Leader is actually, in my experience, a tougher bonus card to score points with than Passerine Specialist. Maybe that makes sense, maybe it doesn't, but as you play, drawing cards at the end of the game to have, look here, 8 birds gives you 7 points. But how many points did I lose just trying to get 8 cards in my hand? Sometimes that feels like a waste for Visionary Leader. So that's the thinking behind this decision. We're going to go with Passerine Specialist. Hopefully we play some smaller 30 centimeter birds. I know the Toei will be one of them. And that's it for player 1. Okay, here we are. This is player 2's hand. And take a look, see what we have here. Not as bad as player 1 in my opinion. You can see that we have some cheaper, easier to play birds. And that's what we're looking for. Immediately, I think the spotted sandpiper is probably a must keep. It's 5 points for 1 food type, which is amazing. 1 food, 5 points, that's really nice. And also that brown power, you get to draw another card from the deck. You are going to allow other players to get a card from the deck, but that's nice draw power to start off with. So we're going to take the sandpiper, probably keep 1 worm. Let's take a peek at these bonus cards here. We have Bird Bander, birds that can live in multiple habitats. And then we have Backyard Birder, birds worth less than 4 points. Backyard Birder is kind of a tough bonus card as well. We talked about Visionary Leader, but you need 5 birds, which is a lot in my opinion, just for 3 points. 5 birds that are worth less than 4 points. Now the goal of the game obviously is to score as many points as possible. And sometimes Backyard Birder is an ace in a hole and you get that maxed out 6 points here. But in my experience, I don't play 5 or 6 or even 7 birds less than 4 points. Your average game is going to be anywhere 9 to 11 birds, maybe 12 birds. In just a basic Wingspan game. So if you're playing 10 birds, let's say, half of them need to be less than 4 points. It's a tough ask. We'll see what the future holds. But from that perspective, I'm going to go with Bird Bander because I see a lot more birds that can live in multiple habitats. Let's get back to card selection. I also like the Broad-Winged Hawk. It doesn't have a great brown power. It lets you roll dice not in the bird feeder, and if any are rats, you get to cash 1 rat on the card, which is a point, but the likelihood of that happening isn't usually high. That being said, this bird has a little gray marking. It's in the Swift Start pack. Those were 10 birds that the game called the Swift Start birds, and it's easy to play. It's 1 rat, and it's a forest bird, and gaining food and drawing cards are your 2 most important actions besides playing a bird. Gaining food, drawing cards, those are important habitats that we want to develop, and they're both easy to play. So I'm going to go with the rat and the worm. And the ash-throated flycatcher doesn't really go with anything we're trying to do. It's a kind of one and done when played power. Lay 1 egg on each of your birds with a cavity nest. I don't see many cavity nests in our future. And then the roseate spoonbill might get your attention if you're a new player because you're like, man, 6 points, draw 2 new bonus cards. But I'm telling you guys, for the amount of space it takes up, it's going to sit in your hand trying to get those 3 food. And also, let's just say you play it immediately, you only have 1 or 2 birds on your board, and you draw 2 new bonus cards. What are you going to see? You're going to see 2 bonus cards like this with big fat zeros right here because you don't have birds on your board to qualify. And that's tough to build your game around sometimes. And so oftentimes, I'm telling you, we've played hundreds, if not thousands of games. There are exceptions to the rules, but keeping bonus cards in your starting hand doesn't really help you with engine building. And in the long run, it may hurt you instead of help you, so we're going to pass on the roseate spoonbill. The only one I'm really debating is this red-tailed hawk. There is an argument just to keep the sandpiper, the red-tailed hawk, and then gain one rat from the bird feeder here and put both of them in the wetlands and do what they call digging. And that's where you just draw cards until you find something to give you food. And that wouldn't be a bad option either. That being said, I'm going to use the rat for the broad-winged hawk because also I'm looking at this tray and player 2 in a 5-player game gets another advantage. They get second dibs on the tray. So I'm thinking this spotted towhee or this Anna's hummingbird may be available for me to gain some food in the grassland. And even though this hawk can go in the forest, it doesn't give me extra food. So I know a lot of these cards are new to you, but we're going to go with this. And then in the next video we're going to upload, we're going to look at how this round 1 turns out. I'm hoping that with a hummingbird or spotted towhee that we could even snag this first end of round goal, which is filled columns. So we will go ahead and take a seed here. We're going to pass on the red-tailed hawk, keep 2 cards and 3 food. All right, so this is lucky player number 3. Here we go with their starting hand. What are we looking for? Cheap, easy to play birds. We're looking for birds that help you with card access or gain extra food. Egg laying is not our top priority in round number 1. And you can see there's not a ton of wetland or forest options. You can see the cedar waxwing goes in the forest, but this brown power lets you tuck a card from your hand behind this bird, and we might not have extra cards to tuck early in the game. Especially with 2 berries, sometimes this bird can be a little tricky to work with. I'm going to pass on the waxwing for just beginner's sake. I've used that card before, but not this time. The best card in this starting hand is the common nightingale. Look how flexible it is. It can be played with 3 different food types. It can go in any habitat, and you can choose a food type. All players gain 1 of that food. So we are going to be sharing some food here, but because we don't have another option, I'd like to put the nightingale in the wetlands, and then we can draw cards and gain food at the same time. So I'm happy we at least got the nightingale. Other than that, guys, these white powers, these one and done birds, honestly, they're pretty situational. And for the food cost and for what they do, the hand that we're dealt, these are not worth our while. We're going to pass on these 2. The only one that I'm going to keep, and some people might pass on it, is the ruby-crowned kinglet. Because after we draw with this nightingale, just looking ahead, I'm thinking if we lay some eggs that we could play another bird with this kinglet. And I like this starting tray. Now, we know that the other 2 hands like it too. But since we're player 3, hopefully one of these birds will be available by the time it gets to our turn. So I may be able to play the towhee, the hummingbird, or the honey buzzard in the forest with the kinglet and just accelerate that forest a little bit more. So that's what I'm going to go with. Let's choose our food that we want. We'll go with a seed, a worm, and a berry. Why not? That'll allow us to play those 2 birds and anything in the tray pretty much. Let's take a look at our bonus cards. We looked at our bonus cards earlier with player 2, but I'm happy with our starting hand. Enclosure builder, birds with ground nests, or prairie manager, birds that only live in the grassland. Let's look at our nest types. I'm not seeing the ground nest type so far. And so the comparison here is 4 birds for 4 points, right? on the low end, or 2 birds for 3 points. So I'm thinking the 2 birds for 3 points might be a little bit easier to snag those 3 extra points. I'm going to go with Prairie Manager. And you can't predict the future. So maybe you choose a bonus card and we're going to draw 4 Enclosure Builder nests. Who knows? But I'm going to go with Prairie Manager. And that's pretty straightforward for player 3. I'm hoping we can grab one of those birds in the tray. Alright, so this is player 4's starting hand, and they get the disadvantage of not getting first choice in the tray. We've got 3 other players that are going to be able to select cards from the tray, but in my opinion, player 4 was dealt almost a dream hand. And as a new player, you might not see what's going on here, but it has a hugely powerful bird in the European expansion called the common chiffchaff. And if you read its brown power, choose 1 to 5 birds in this habitat. Tuck 1 card from your hand behind each. So if it has this logo right here, that means it's a tucking bird. And tucking scores you points, right? And that's what we want to do at the end of the day. On top of the chiffchaff, we've got 2 other wetland birds here. Ruddy duck and Audouin's gull. Check it out. The brown powers on the ruddy duck draw 2 cards. If you do, discard 1 from your hand at the end of your turn. So you get to draw 2, keep 1. Audouin's gull, you get to draw 2 cards, keep 1, and tuck 1. And I'm going to show you in this next video. This is a very straightforward hand. The Eurasian hobby isn't really anything, and we've already talked about the downfall of keeping bonus card birds early on because we don't have the birds to qualify. But I'm going to show you in this next video what these 3 birds alone can do. I'm kind of excited about player 4's hand. We're going to stick these in our wetlands, and our game plan is going to be drawing cards and scoring points. That's about it. It's a pretty one-dimensional game, but because I can draw 2 cards with the gull, 2 more cards with ruddy duck, and then tuck them all with the chiffchaff, this could be a very interesting and high-scoring game from player 4. We're going to keep a worm. Looks like, let's look at the bird feeder again. There are no fish in the tray, so we'll keep a fish in hopes to get this Audouin's gull down. And we will take oh wait, the rule of 5. We can only keep 2 food types, right? So we'll stick with this, and we may have to dip into the bird feeder once or twice to get these other birds down. We don't know what the other players are going to select, obviously. If they hand out extra food, great. If they don't, we'll just get the food ourselves. Let's take a look at the bonus cards. Oh my goodness. And look at the bonus cards. Ethologist in any one habitat, 2 points per power color, right? So if I have a brown power in the wetlands, we'll get 2 points. If we put a white power in there, we'll get 4. But the more exciting bonus card is bird counter. Birds with a tucking power. And what do we have? We've got at least 2 birds with the tucking power. So that's at least 4 points. And I hope we can add some more. That's a pretty straightforward choice. Easy choice with bird counter. All right, just one last look, and we are going to lock that in. All right, everybody, this is player 5, the last player to select their starting hand, and check out what we have here. I'm going to tell you right now, guys, off the bat, the American Robin is almost always an automatic pickup, okay? It has that tuck power that we talked about that can be very beneficial. This lets you tuck a card from your hand and also draw a card. So if you have an extra or useless card, this Robin makes use of it by scoring a point and then seeing another card. I'm really hoping we can utilize the Robin. Also, this Wagtail. This is a tougher card for newer players. But ultimately, this teal power, if you use all 4 types of actions, okay? You played 1 bird, you gained food, you laid eggs, or you drew a card. If you use all 4 of those, you can play another bird at the end of the round. And since we were dealt this, guys, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to show you what the white wagtail can do with player 5. If you're a new player and this is your first time playing Wingspan, you might hold off on this bird because this requires some extra organization, to be honest with you. And you would be perfectly fine deselecting this one and going for something else. But with this wagtail, I'm not going to miss this opportunity. We're going to use the wagtail, the robin, also this song sparrow. It's cheap to play and it can move to other habitats. I like that one. And what else? Let's take a peek at our bonus cards here. Behaviorist or viticulturist. So we've looked at several bad bonus cards. Behaviorist is one of the worst, in my opinion. For each column that contains birds with 3 different power colors, it's very hard to revolve your game around this bonus card. It's almost just chance whether you get 3 different power colors in a column. Somebody out there can prove me wrong, but viticulturist is by far the easier bonus points to grab. Plus, we have 2 birds right here that eat berries, so it looks like we'll be able to qualify for that one. Now, since we're keeping the wagtail, and someone may pick up this hummingbird, we'll see, that's not a guarantee, we might be getting extra food, and the wagtail lets me play another bird at the end of the round, right? And I don't have much wetland options. I'd like a better wetland bird here, so I'm going to do something maybe a little controversial, and I'm going to keep the merganser and the dick sissel. I said you could keep 5 birds. This is one of those rare situations where Master Wing is going to try to keep 5 birds. And the reason I'm doing that is because the robin, I can gain food, play it. But this extra card, this dick sissel, it's 3 food cost. Even though it has a tucking power, the 3 food cost makes it difficult. So I'm going to use this dick sissel to tuck behind this robin and hopefully find something better. The merganser could be used as a tucking bird for the robin, or we can gain that food with the song sparrow and robin and hopefully play this merganser at the end of the round using the wagtail's teal power. I told you this teal power requires some extra planning. You're kind of thinking ahead 2, 3, maybe even 4 turns. So we're going to roll with this and not worry about the food. We have a berry and a worm in the bird feeder. I'm hoping that stays for the robin. All right, we got our bonus cards, and that's it for player 5. 5 very different hands. I think we saw, unique approaches to all of them. Player 4, player 5, I think they're the favorites right now. Players 1, 2, and 3 may get some better cards out of the tray, but they were dealt some tougher hands. So just to recap, brown pelican, black-billed magpie, definitely not a strong start, but it's something. Gonna look to take the towee. Player 2, it's not gonna show us because of the app. I tell you what, hit that subscribe button so you can watch how we play this round 1, because we're gonna take these cards we selected and we're going to use 8 turns in round 1 and score as much as we can and set up that engine. Thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful with card selection. And watch that other video, see how we do. Peace.